we'll do the live thing first. Like. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Bigmark podcast. It's me, your host, Bigmark. If it's your first time listening, welcome. If not, welcome back. Like we always say, if you're watching on YouTube, please hit the bell for notifications so you know when the next video comes out, and subscribe to the channel. I know it doesn't take too much, but if you like the podcast, please give us a 5-star review wherever you're listening. It really helps us spread the word. Like and share, do all that good stuff. If you want to ever reach out to us, check us out on our Instagram, at the Bigmark Pod, or our Twitter at the Bigmark Podcast. You can reach us there if you want to hear a new episode or give us any feedback, so to speak. And then if you want to donate to the podcast, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. It's been a while since I've had a guest on, so I'm super excited to have two behind the camera here to start, as it's been a long time. Our OG producer, Christian Aubino.
Hey, what's going on?
What's up, brother? He's behind the cam, and then of course in front of the cam we got Mr. Jack Williams.
Yes, man.
Yeah, welcome back.
The boys
are
back.
The trio.
Nice.
The boys are back in town.
It feels like it's been forever. It's lonely on this couch sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say I haven't been on mic or hearing my voice in headphones for some time.
It's interesting, eh? Like I find with the because. Well, Christian knows we didn't start with headphones.
Nope.
Because I only had one pair.
Right.
So we were like, if I don't want to just be the only one wearing the headphones, I want the guest to be able to wear them too. And I want Christian to be able to wear them. So until we were able to get 3, or at least 2, because we do all the solo ones too. I don't want to rock the headphones. But as soon as we did, shout out Auntie Sheila. I don't know if you're listening or watching, but she hooked it up with the Lon McQuaid's gift card. I think it was a birthday present, and I bought new headphones with it.
Great gift.
And it's always nice. It's always nice to get gifts, eh?
Hey.
Shit.
Yeah, but no. Again, thanks Auntie Sheila for rocking us, because now we're all in each other's heads.
Yeah, man.
It's very like it keeps the conversation kind of like, again, it's like hard to be distracted, right? Because you're like it's like you're listening to each other.
You're in the brain, like you're in the ear,
right?
Yeah.
There's no like weird.
No, it's smart. I think it's good investment, and that's like what you continue to do with the pod as well. So as I was saying the other day, like multiple episodes now, just
I know, right?
Flowing by the week.
Almost at 100.
How many? Yeah, almost at 100.
Holy shit! I know, right? This is going to be
77.
Yeah,
Killer.
I think.
Well done.
Yeah,
that's
thanks.
awesome.
I know, like again, we were talking about like, you know, all basically all of our endeavors here, like whether it's cinematography, whether it's painting, whether it's business acumen of any type. The only way to do it is to do it. Like it's like, you know, big things like you have to be there for the big things to happen. Right?
Yeah.
Like they're always going on, chances happen, you know, things go by, but you have to be like in the moment and ready for it. You can't really be like, oh, I'm going to wait till something happens, or, you know, I'm just going to like, you know, like accumulate a bunch of stuff first, and then one day when the timing's right, I'll just release it. And it's like, you can't really do that because.
Yeah, no, I'm better at it these days, like of being behavior first. Like Andrew Huberman is a big one on that. Explaining it of like how you can't wait for like the emotion to do things, or like the like motivation runs out sort of thing as well.
Right.
But yeah, I find I was like a lot of people, big dreamer, like lots of things going on, lots of ideas.
100%.
But then until you're like just doing it and just trying it, it's not. I don't know. It's not that it's not real, but it's just why not start? Because you'll end up solving a lot of things that you're going to have to face eventually. So as you say, you're better off just being in it, doing it.
Well, and that's how you're going to get better at like, well, at least in our kind of artistic endeavors anyway, or it's more so like, you're not really going to know if it works until you actually do it and put it out there and see people's reactions and see how people like it and see if it sells and see if whatever, you know, it's like that's how I think many people are kind of held back, and they have dreams and they have aspirations. They want to do this, they want to do that. And again, they're just waiting for that perfect moment to finally strike. And they're waiting for that miracle to happen. And sometimes it happens, but sometimes, you know, again, you almost have to be already in it. You know, it's almost like with any artist, or like, you know, all these podcasts we listen to with stand-up comedians. They basically say you don't really make it as a stand-up or like become any type of successful as a stand-up comedian till about like 10 years in.
Yeah.
Right, which is probably like
I
the
like that
10,000
one.
hour mark,
It's
or
a good
whatever,
reminder. Yeah.
whatever you want to call it. It's usually about 10 years. And I think that's a fairly good rule of thumb for probably anything.
Yeah, just to remind yourself of that, like, because again, you can jump dramatic amounts in a couple years, couple weeks, couple days, but yeah, if you just have that reminder of like, it's probably going to take you at least a decade to become decent at what you do.
And it's odd in today's day and age, because there's so many like really young, super successful people, like really young, like I'm talking like teens,
Yeah.
like with TikTok and stuff. And it's like, it's giving a really false impression of what you need to do to actually be famous, if that's what you want to be. I mean, famous can mean a lot of things.
Yeah.
Right. But again, like there's that weird thing that's happening nowadays. And I mean, it was starting to happen like when I was a kid. It was starting to happen when you guys were younger too.
It's like the influencer generation thing, you mean? Or just
like there's always been like young successful people.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, but now because of social media and everything, we have full view of it. And then because of TikTok, as a direct result, or even like Twitch or even YouTube, we can literally see that people can do a certain thing and be really successful. Like even take this podcast. It's not obviously the most popular podcast in the world. I'm amongst many that are very popular though, and are very successful. So it's like a medium that potentially is popular. And then with all the band stuff, it's cross-pollination, whatever. But it's a very small percentage of whatever anyone's doing that is actually like near the top. Sports is the same thing. Like it was always this weird, like that's how the NCAA ran for years until they started allowing sponsorships. Was, hey, you might make it pro, so we'll pay for your school, but that's fucking it. You better give us everything you got for this team. We don't care what else until you get hurt, and then see ya. Yeah. And then the chances of you making it are literally 1 in 100. Like it's less than 1% of the NCAA actually make it pro, but they promise you the world.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh yeah, sure, I'll sign my life away. You know, you can pay for my schooling or whatever, and that's it.
Yeah.
Which is nothing to them, as you break your body and give everything you got, and then all of a sudden these people are fucking done, like for the rest of their life.
Yeah, the athlete journey's insane. I mean,
and it's probably a common theme in this podcast, but I've always likened that to any artistic. It's like art.
For sure.
What were you gonna say there?
Just
Okay,
again, the run of like the athletic journey and the concept of having to put so much discipline and commitment to something, to an identity, to a practice, and then there being a clear end to that, but you don't know when that day comes. Again, like every athlete knows one day I will stop being an athlete. But is that at 26, 25, or is that at like, you know, you see
is
the
it like
fuckers.
your first game.
Right, yeah.
Right.
Or is it
be.
never until you're like 85 and you're running on the beach and you slip on a shell and you fucking twist your ankle and that's the first injury you've ever had.
Right.
It's like you can't allow the thought or worry of like a reality to put you there too early, I suppose. You know what I mean?
I know
like
exactly what you mean, but
if every athlete or every musician was like, it's going to come to an end, why bother?
and that's the thing, is that like growing up as an athlete, like being a child, playing sports literally my entire childhood, never once did that thought enter my mind, and never once did anyone fucking think to be like, hey, one day you're not going to be an athlete anymore, because I'd probably be like, well, why the fuck am I doing this? Right. So it's the craziest thing with athleticism in the world of sports. Is nuts, because it's like this weird microcosm of life anyway. Again, common theme on this podcast, but athletics, the world of sports, if you will, exists inside reality. It's its own reality in a sense, right? And what I mean is there's different rules. You know, again, people suspend a lot of disbelief about like what the human body is capable. There's weird shit in sports with like buying and trading and selling people.
Right.
And there's like, you know, there's all kinds of weird shit and measuring people and like the macho shit and like the weird like playing when you're hurt and like, you know, giving yourself and like there's a we really what we put on a pedestal or what we celebrate in sport is very different from what we celebrate in life. Like if like again, my whole fucking life, my whole basketball or football career, everyone's like be more aggressive, be tougher, be tougher. And then I got to go with the life and be gentle. You're huge. Know your strength. Don't be so rough. Blah blah blah.
You're aggressive.
I'm like, what
Back
the
and
fuck
forth.
is going on, right?
Yeah.
So like because it's two different worlds and I can't go out like I'm playing a football game to a regular life.
To just the street. Yeah.
No
Yeah,
matter
yeah.
what, there's not going to go down right.
No.
I'm going to fucking freak someone out. Someone's going to fucking
Just step
call the
too
po.
hard.
It's going to be assault because that's what football is fucking pure assault. So again, there's a lot of suspension of rules that are normal in reality. So anyway, I guess you could say the same thing with art, but not really. It exists in reality just like anything is more or less the same rules. The moment of creation and the moment of art is whatever. But again, the life of the athlete, as we were saying, is akin to the same thing, but it's outside and the effort and time and all the stuff that you put into becoming an athlete, you could never do if someone at any point was like, hey, this might be over. I mean, like once you got to university and shit, most of the people were like, all right, this is probably the end. This is the end of the line. It's a pretty good level. We got pretty high. Not everyone's like, I want to be pro. Not necessarily in the States. I'm talking more like my experience in like Canada. It's like, okay, this is more or less the highest level of sport in Canada. I'm pretty happy with this. When it's my fifth or sixth year, if I manage to do some grad school, I'm gonna celebrate my last year. I'm gonna celebrate my last game. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, like the athletes the athletes join the athletic at that point, where it's like people would describe themselves as athletic.
Sure.
I'm an active person, but to be an athlete is a different commitment,
That's
different
interesting.
lifestyle,
I agree.
everything like that.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting conception of like a choose your profession, I guess, is like athlete, musician, whatever it is like at what point and like under what like frame do you define athlete, athletic, musician, like music, interested in philosophy, like again, fucking how far does the line like turn over and crack of like your identity and who you could be?
What's craziest too is how it's viewed in like society, like how people view athletes. Like there's like this like presence to them. There's this character even on campus at at Mac, right? Like you can see with like the bags, there's like a distinction between them and everybody else because they have the exact same bag. Yeah. It doesn't matter what sport you have. It's the same Nike check mark with your number and
with
like,
your sport.
with like and
totally.
like and then like underneath like a little thing of like what sport.
Yeah, exactly.
So like it's like a cleared like
Distinction
for sure between them and everybody else.
So as guys that didn't play
distinction.
And earned
sense,
for
right?
sure.
Like,
Like,
that's
there's
the
this like held like I got this. This is what it is. And there's this like sense of like respect and just how it is when they're like walking around.
For sure.
You know what I mean? But it definitely falls like hand in hand to the fact of putting in that time and putting in that effort, right? And putting in blood, sweat, and tears into what it is. Yeah. So I think it's like owed, right, in a sense.
and
Yeah, I would
they're
say so.
kind of like, I guess you could say because really if you look back in history, the breakdown of how we kind of do things, like what humans do kind of thing has more or less been the same, like there's been leaders, there's been like the general public, there's been knights, there's been warriors, and there's soldiers we have today, and then there's athletes, and they kind of fall in that weird like warrior kind of thing. And especially nowadays we really appreciate like the warrior monk kind of thing, right? It's like that whole Aubrey Marcus thing.
Yeah.
And the only two ways you can be like a legitimate warrior is like be a fighter or an athlete of probably any type, or legitimate soldier. So they fall in this weird category of like, again, they exist in another world. It's just like the military. It's this other world, and people are like, which is fascinating, man. It's almost like you can think about it like as these different dimensions existing simultaneously, or even like, and then there's rich people too that live on a whole other planet. Like, have you ever all this shit happening with the Kardashians because they're so crazy rich now they forgot how to be human. Garth Brooks is the same. Like he's like, what's a
Oh,
carton?
oh, for
what's a
sure.
carton of milk worth?
Yeah.
Like $30? I don't know. Like he's just like so out of touch.
Garth Brooks,
like
man.
never had to worry about shit. And it's the same thing with Kendall not knowing how to cut a cucumber, or like they're going to the. I didn't even watch it. I just saw a headline that apparently they went to a grocery store and were like chirping. I don't know. Anyway, but this is what happens. People lose touch. And you either stay in it, like athletes either stay in sport, they become coaches, they become broadcasters. Academics is the same thing.
Yeah.
You stay a teacher, you stay tenured, and you're just in it and you're in it, and you don't actually cross over into real life. So again, we have these people who, you know, exist in this own kind of world. Athletics, all they're thinking about is the next game. What did I eat today? When my next training thing is, blah, blah, blah. They're walking by you in this world. And we're going like, you know, the life is happening and
Life
there's
is
like
so
real
sick.
shit happening. And like, man, like, I can't tell you the fucking things I used to like miss for sports. And it wasn't even a question. Like, oh yeah, I can't go on that trip. I got whatever. Oh, I can't go here. I can't go there. Can't go to the family, whatever, because we've gone forever. But I got sports now, and
There is a missed attention to how much like any sort of
shout
path-
out Arizona.
Shout
Shout out.
Almost the longest stable.
Which
but
one is
didn't
which
quite.
one?
Stable
flavor?
I got
Was green
ginseng
tea?
green tea.
The best.
It's Arizona stable coin. 99 cents always.
Yes.
Almost.
No, not anymore. They fucking
Was
bumped
it
that shit up.
$1.30, $1.40.
Yeah, something like that.
Everything, everywhere,
Ever since Luna.
all at once.
Oh
Yeah.
my god.
Boys.
So
Yes.
okay.
That's
So we all saw it. So we all saw it. How many times have you rewatched it? Have you had an opportunity? Like you saw it twice.
I've seen it twice. Yeah.
I've seen it one more time after.
Me too. So we've all seen it twice now.
Yeah.
Anything you caught on the second time?
Yeah. I caught a lot of the.
So maybe I don't know if anyone's not seen this movie anywhere,
Yeah.
everywhere, all the time. I guess it's a
quite
spoiler
frankly,
alert.
if you don't want to know about the movie, skip forward.
Skip this part
'Cause
of the
I'm gonna
podcast.
I want to talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, and we're gonna get deep into it
Oh my
because it's
God.
heavy, and it's gonna take us
just-
into tangential realms. So just come along with us. We're not gonna ruin anything for anybody. We're gonna enhance.
Basically,
we're
yeah.
gonna enhance.
Yeah.
For sure.
I noticed just like a lot more. Of course, like the foreshadowing, like suggestions of what the rest of the movie was going to come to. But
Yep.
I liked at the same time how there was, again, it's just that filled of a movie. Like I'd be watching
Packed.
the top left instead of the top or the bottom right, like the first time, and it's like completely different. Or I like looked at the one part where it's like fucking ancestral line,
Yeah.
and I like looked away the first time. Like I blinked, I'd like moved my eyes. Whereas this time it was like I'm not looking away from this.
Right.
Should have fucking epilepsy warning and shit for
yeah.
sure.
No doubt. No doubt.
But yeah, killer. It's again like you spoke about it, Christian. Like it reaches into like days after.
Oh.
Like it's psychedelic.
Yeah, I don't know how many times. I don't know if I've felt like that after watching a movie in a long time.
Oh man, that was the first time I think. Other than, yeah, that's exactly
That's
what's
it.
going on.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's it right
That's
there.
it. We just shifted right there.
Yeah, do something weird, bro.
Right.
We're in a whole new world. I gotta switch my shoes.
Yo, which verse are we on?
Who knows? The Alpha verse.
Bro, ask me, man. I'm talking about gifts and shit.
Oh my goodness.
Which verse are we on?
That's Alpha verse
Yeah.
shit.
Yeah.
Just insane.
But
You were saying, sorry.
what were we saying?
The movie's fucking insane. and,
Like we never felt like that coming from a
Oh
movie.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. There was only really one other movie that kind of made me feel that way, and I think it more had to do with like the ambience and the music really played a huge part in it.
Okay.
But Interstellar
Yeah.
was
You
one
said
that
as
was
well.
that was huge for me. That
Did you see
kinda
that in
touched
theaters? Did you see it in
No,
Interstellar?
I
Okay.
didn't. I did not.
Me neither.
I think I might have.
But that was one where I had to pause
Ooh.
through parts and be like,
It's
we
heavy.
watched that around
What?
the same time.
yes,
as we talked about it.
Yes,
And
It's
like it was
Jack mentioned it to me.
fucking
and I-
insane. Because I think you mentioned it when we were here.
For sure.
And then I went home and I watched it.
Right.
Okay,
And
yeah,
I just
definitely.
remember being like
Yeah.
that. Like again, I went and like painted because of that movie and was like, oh, like I was tripping balls while being sober as shit, watching
just
a
thinking
movie
about
by myself on my couch. And then again, yeah, very similar influence, like in a very different way though. But
The amount of imagination and
more
creativity that
animated,
goes
right? Yeah.
into, and like even scientific creativity that goes into trying to put time in the third dimension. Because that's essentially what they did at the end. If no one's seen Interstellar, at the end there, where he's like hitting the books.
Yeah, labyrinth and shit.
Yeah, that's
Incredible.
supposed to be time visually represented, which is technically impossible.
Right.
Because it exists outside the third dimension of like objectivity or whatever the fuck. But it's and this is a very distinct possibility, because we have actually discovered like at least 12 dimensions, that there are beings that exist outside those dimensions and are able to see time as a visual dimension, and therefore like manipulate it. So like, which is wild, because again, we see time as we see time. Everyone knows how we see time.
Right.
It's linear. We kind of have an idea that there has been a past, but realistically we don't.
Yeah.
Like if you really think hard, you only know the past exists because of like
Right now.
memories, which are fallible.
Right.
Yeah.
And suggestible,
Can't be
and like
trusted.
camera shit, and like technology now has been able to like show us memories, legitimately memories. They call them on Facebook.
Yeah.
But shit.
Well, I mean, that was the wild thing as well about Interstellar, was how he gave himself the technology. Again, Interstellar, fucking spoilers.
Yeah, it's all
That, like,
spoiler alert. I should just put that in the disclaimer, the description of the podcast. Spoiler
The
alert
fact that, like,
on
he-
any movie ever.
We like movies now.
Yeah.
Now.
No.
Fucking.
Only
what
had a
was I saying?
couple suggestions from Bigmark.
Plenty.
The sense that like he gave himself the technology that was technically invented and like well into the future by his daughter,
Right.
who he communicated with, and vice versa the whole time. So the
Yeah, trippy.
the touch of like how technology can like develop and exist, like that's another touch of everything everywhere all at once, where like again, the fact that she's like jumping with the headset and like has to do something weird, like, or any of the characters had to do something weird to jump
Right.
and to find their new ability. And it was so crazy, where I was like, oh wow, like the technology that could be like found in between there, where like again she was existing in like multiple
Right. Simultaneous
verses
rounds. Yeah, yeah.
simultaneously and having to like focus, and it was this incredible touch on like the reality that you like suggest in to yourself.
Right.
You can get lost in as well, where she's like, what is it, the one part where her like mentor or whatever is like, don't get distracted by like the other verses, like because you can get like fucking mind jumbled or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Too many at once or whatever it is.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, like whatever. I forget exactly what they called it too, but yeah, I think that whole idea of like probability is crazy too. Like how so. For anyone who's still listening who hasn't seen it, essentially the whole idea is that this multiverse exists with all these simultaneous universes where we all exist in them, each one of them, and the one universe in existence found a way to be able to move through each one, and basically, and the science is really cool. Like the sci-fi part of the movie is actually really cool, and that's one part I'd like to like look at even further and be like, what did they actually? Because they like kind of described it. Like I think the directors did a really good job at not over explaining it, because it can lose a lot of people and it can get too friggin' sciencey. But they did kind of a good job and like spend some time explaining what actually happens in the movie. So again, I'll have to watch it again and try and figure it out. But the whole idea of that it's like a probability is what actually keeps you in a particular universe. Like your attention or your focus, I guess, is what it would really be. Right? Like somehow that actual like knowing you're in a certain universe is just like this weird attention thing. Or are they suggesting that like we actually are everywhere all at once? That in those moments, like in a dream or something where you're doing something, you're actually in that universe. Like maybe that's the suggestion.
And like how like
Yeah.
each choice can affect it in such a dramatic way.
Totally.
And I think that showed in like all possible scenarios.
And that moment when that choice is made is when you split off.
Right. Like instant crack.
Like literally you
Crazy.
you turn right instead of turn left, but a piece of you keeps going.
For sure.
It's there's
Your
still another
possibilities.
version let's say, that exists there,
Yeah.
like very soon.
Well, I
You
always
know?
used to.
And then it's like, how does that plane?
We're
looking at London.
yeah,
by the way, on
we
the
are
screen.
looking at London.
Sorry, everyone.
The bridge with water and the tower
Oh.
in it.
But Big Ben, right?
Mm-hmm.
No, the Tower of London.
Tower
No.
of
London.
Big Ben is the bell.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
Same thing.
Nice.
Nice. What's that bridge? London Bridge? No, it's a different bridge.
No, I think that would be London Bridge because Tower Bridge is. Like
And then
the
there's
one that
Amsterdam.
has the top. There it is. Quick switch.
Let's go.
Boom.
First switch now.
So
I don't
again,
know
we're
that
just.
street.
This is probably weird for everyone listening, and even everyone watching. We have our monitor up here where we usually have our facts, but we're going faxless today, and it's just like Google Images, like throwing up random shit. So sorry, everyone, we're getting distracted.
Yeah, just side piece there.
But
To
places,
relate.
all the places you can go. And
Yeah.
again, I've always used to, and like I used to say this all the time too. Like choices are what get us to anywhere in life.
Mm-hmm.
Every single thing, it's a choice. You choose to do one thing, you choose to do another. You choose to let something bother you. You choose to let something fucking roll off your back. Whatever. It is a choice. Anything is a choice, and I think again, it's our perception of time. We don't really understand how the future really works. We only have the past to kind of guide us, but the past shouldn't necessarily guide us because it's going to change. So it's actually really hard to use the past as a guide for what the future is. It's a guide in the sense of if we made a mistake, try not to do that again.
Right.
But in no way is it a roadmap for like what we should do in the future. So the
Yeah.
possibilities are truly endless, and they are at a moment-to-moment basis, but that's how our physical being works because that's how we perceive time.
Right.
I think that like raises an interesting part about the movie of where she like could experience like the reward of certain existences, but then like the mistakes of them as well, and how that would then like, because she could be aware of the like multiple places that she like perceived to exist, she could then bring that back into like her normal reality, if you will. You know what I mean? Where she was like talking to her like husband
Right.
when they were like rich,
Yeah.
and then that was influencing their behavior when they were owning the laundromat.
Yeah.
And yeah, like again, rolling back around to like, as you said, the choices is just vast. Yeah,
I
that's
think
insane.
one thing that's kind of crazy is like how it, for me, intuition came up a lot. Like it was almost like these choices and these multiple possibilities. Like, where does this sense of like feeling of like, you know, following like a sense of like urgency or like a, you know, being in like a situation and knowing in your gut that something's not right. Like, does that have any like correlation to any of that? Like, is it something that we maybe like possibly touched on before, or have like past experiences that correlate to kind of something similar that we're doing now?
Yeah, like is there some invisible string that does connect us to all those existences? And it is that like, because again, my explanation, like, how did you like in the movie? It was like, it's like what versus what? What did you call it?
It's Scott Pilgrim
Versus the Matrix.
No,
Interstellar.
Interstellar.
Okay.
And then I like just
Added the
fucking
fingers.
Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Right.
Because it's like multiverse.
I said Rick and Morty versus the Matrix. That's how I've been explaining it.
That's funny.
But I just
Yeah.
couldn't remember exactly what you said. But yours is a great description too. But that's how I've been explaining it. And the way because I say the Matrix, because they can like get the skills from other things. So it's just like, you know, when Neo learns
Yep.
kung fu,
Yeah.
it's that same idea where you can like get you can get the experience from other universes. And it reminds me of this story that I actually heard on Joe Rogan's podcast. He was telling when he was hosting Fear Factor, Coolio was on. Have you ever heard this story?
Yeah. Coolio the rapper.
Coolio the rapper. Yeah, fucking.
Yeah, I don't even know.
Spend the most I love.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Gangsta's paradise. Yeah, Coolio.
Yep.
So he's on. I guess it was like probably a celebrity episode. I don't know.
No way.
Yeah, so Coolio's on, and he's doing some crazy stunt. Like, you know, they have him doing crazy shit. It's Fear Factor.
Right.
And he has to, like, jump out of a plane or something crazy and land on some shit. Like, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I don't know, he was just like he comes up to do it, and Joe's standing right there, and he's talking to him, right? And he's like, aren't you nervous? Because he appeared like totally fine. Like he was just like, ready to go. Like, let's
Cool
go.
as a cucumber.
And Joe's like, okay, man, like, obviously Joe didn't have to do any of this shit, but he must have been looking at half these stunts going like, I can't believe we're sending fucking people to do this.
Yeah,
like, this is nuts. Anyway, so Joe's like, I don't even know if this was on camera, but anyway, he's like, cool, like, whatever, cool. What's up, man?
cool.
Whatever everyone calls him. I don't know. Yo,
Yeah.
Yo, Coolio.
yo, Coolio.
Yo,
Don't
Brad.
just call me cool.
Cool.
So he's like, Mr. Coolio, you know, why are you so chill or whatever, right? And he's like, Joe, I've done this 1,000 times in a million lifetimes, like on a million different ways. Like, I've done this.
Fuck. That's so sick.
Like what?
Right?
Saying it's one thing, but like to be visibly embodying it is another.
And then he went and like did it and like nailed the stunt. I think
Yeah.
he won. I think is the end of the story. But
So funny.
that idea of like, it's like I think it's a Zen thing too. I think of this like where you can potentially gain access to all these experiences throughout time and space potentially, which is friggin' crazy.
Well, it's like,
And to think that just at this moment right now, this is where our attention and perception is for whatever reason. And who knows, it
Right.
could switch at any time because we keep living our lives.
well, it can. I think it can get like, it can switch, and then it can also get like drawn up in things, and like so much of everything we've talked about also relates to like narrative for me, like how you just narrate things almost back to yourself and like putting them out again, like we've talked about journaling and stuff recently, which is nice, of like putting it out in a source that's other than you, and then
Right.
being able to go back and look at it.
Right.
It's like the reference of it just provides like great insight.
Right, which is crazy because then even when you go look back at like previous stuff that you wrote, you can almost pop into that mindset for like that split second that you're reading whatever's going on, and kind of like put into like reference of like how things are now and put it into perspective, and to just know that, you know, that was all just put into thought but put onto paper, and to also see like the progress as well, right?
100%.
You said it. You were like, how the past can change, and I was like, oh, that's a funny. Like when you said it, I was like, that's funny to me because it's just how the memories constantly can be adapted of how you describe it to someone, what you felt in that moment, how you later reflect on it, how you reflect on it. It's
And even
powerful.
in the present moment, like think about times when you're being creative and then you look back and you're like, I can't believe this was me. Like there's so many times still to this day, and I don't know if it's just like a weird like imposter syndrome thing, but like I'll listen back like with stuff I'm doing with the new band, which we're called Reckless Harbor, by the way. Have you seen stuff I've been posting? What do you think of the name?
Sick.
The record,
I like it.
That's fine.
So I don't have access to it, so I don't know who's following it right now.
Yeah.
It's just our one buddy who runs it, or one band member.
I saw
but
like
yeah,
the,
Reckless
the
Harbor, cool.
intro vid.
Yeah.
and it, like panned through all of you guys.
Nice, eh?
Sick. Yeah.
Pretty jokes.
Yeah,
Like we
right.
just threw that together just for something, just to introduce everybody. And
Again, introduction.
we're trying to get
starts
into
there,
Super
for sure.
Crawl, so that
Oh,
kind
cool.
of like was the big impetus of like figuring the name out and doing all that
Wicked.
stuff. So
Nice.
yeah. So
See you
super cool.
there.
I was excited. Yeah,
That's sick.
it was like relatively easy to figure out the name, and yeah, it was tons of fun. So we've been doing stuff with that and like doing like small recordings, and I'll like listen. I'll be like, is that me playing?
Right.
Like, did you just re-record this? Because it sounds better than anything I could ever play.
Right.
Or
Yeah.
like in my mind. And again, I don't know if that's just imposter syndrome or like whatever self-confidence shit. But it's just like, because when you're creative, you're in that zone. And you're so open in that channel that we've talked about many times, being open to that channel. Are you channeling a version of yourself that is like a genius artist? Are you channeling a version of yourself that's like an Oscar-nominated cinematographer, right? Are you channeling someone from
an
even
interesting
from
thought.
ancient times, even if it's an ancestor,
Right.
or something like that, right? Like there's so many things to think about, because obviously the multiverse theory, I think, is the new futuristic,
Right.
looking forward version of like, oh, my ancestors gave me this shit. Right, because there's always been that idea too, that we have thousands of generations before us, all the way back to fucking fish in the water.
Right. And like going back to the movie, going to that map and being able to scope out and be like, oh, let me search, and scanning all possibilities and landing on something to gather whatever knowledge you would need. And again, channeling in. Is that
And it's all a
something that's
probability thing too.
right? Is that something that's going on? That's going on right now that we've done with that experience and like with that genius, but we're able to also like interconnect with what's going on now and just add to it,
Right.
but in our own essence and how it is here in this notion.
And remember we were saying you have to be doing it to do it.
Exactly.
Is that allowing that channel? Is that doing the probability thing? Is that putting the shoe on the other foot?
Is like action
That's
the fire
actually opening
to open
that
the
possibility.
channel?
Right? So then people are like, why isn't shit working? It's because you're not actually doing it. Even though what you might be doing in that moment might not work. Because think about how many times it didn't work right away, or it sent you to a weird other universe or whatever in the movie. But you have to do it properly. Or when she was like, had to say like, I love you to Jamie Lee Curtis's character
The Office.
for it to work. And she really had to believe it.
Right.
But before then
Had to
it
be
wasn't
authentic.
working.
Yeah.
Like, is that channel that's opening? And again, this whole probability thing fucking blows my mind, because it's like, that's how in physics we look at electrons. Yeah. It's like probability. Like, you know how, remember in science we learned about like Bohr Rutherford, and then we learned like it's like rings that like orbit, looks like a small solar system, like an atom. Sorry, the description of an atom looks like a small universe. And then we're like, oh, maybe it's like a blueberry muffin. Maybe it's like this thing that exists with all these different electrons in it.
Yep.
And then by the time we were in grade 11 physics, they're like, psych, none of that shit is real. This is what we actually think. Because it's so complicated, it would blow our feeble little minds. I think that's why they do it. I'm assuming, because I don't understand why they waste their time teaching us shit that's old.
Or they do it to limit our genius.
Limit the genius, but all you have to do is just take grade 11 physics
Right?
and then tell you. But
Cap
yeah.
us until a certain
Little question.
brain development,
I think it's
right?
just
Curricular.
Just distinction.
Boom,
too.
let's just do it at this pace, right? And then
Well, if you
let
look
the
at high
brain-
school in that way, it's just this big sieve that's just separating and like measuring. Talk about measuring people, measuring kids and being like, you're smarter than this one. This one's like, who cares?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, what? It's actually fucked, right?
Yeah,
If you think about
the
it.
methods are definitely outdated.
And even within like in the academics, it's only like a top 3 students that the teachers really care about. Everyone else, like maybe they'll make it to university or whatever.
Right.
But you're gonna graduate too, which is the other thing. So it's just like this weird like separation thing. You're going to college, you're going to university, you're going to the workplace. Like it's this weird like, again, this sieve that just like puts you in a box and is like, this is what you're gonna do.
Choices.
It's just weird little just descriptions too. Just the way it's like told to people on those early. Like I remember the idea of approaching college or university and just how much of like a heavy decision that felt at a time.
Oh God, yeah.
While knowing
Sure.
like nothing about myself.
Being like, this is they're gonna be the rest of your life, blah blah
Right.
blah.
Yeah,
Because as soon as you graduate, you're gonna get a job in your field, blah blah blah. Right?
Right,
Again,
yeah.
so again, it's almost the same thing that they tell athletes with NCAA. It's all these weird promises that are based on very low statistics, technically, right? And times change and things are different. And it's like they don't teach you the right shit anyway. But again, that whole idea of the probability chart for like an atom. So like again, they told us all that bullshit, but then by grade 11, they're like, there's these essentially probability like charts around the nucleus of an electron. So you have the nucleus of an electron an atom, and you have electrons going around it. You have different orbitals, they're called. So you have like 2 ones that are shaped like a sphere. You have one that's shaped like a figure 8. There's one that's shaped like another weird thing on a different like orientation. Anyway, they're different levels of orbitals. So the more electrons there are in an atom, the more of these orbitals you have. But essentially they're probability charts. So they're like a guesstimate because of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle.
Yep.
I think I think honestly I always misquote this, but there is a principle in physics. There's a physics principle that we can only know an atom or an electron's physical place in the universe, but we can't know its speed. Or we can know its speed, but we can't know where it is. We can't know where it is and how fast it's going simultaneously. That's just a limit of our technology at this point. So we can be like, this electron is going 1,000,000 miles an hour or whatever, but we don't know where the fuck it's going to be from point A to point B. Or we can be like, hey, look, there's this electron, but we've just taken a snapshot of it. We don't know how fast it's going. So anyway, essentially the theory is that it's probably going to be in one of these orbitals. So it's probably going to be around the atom, but there is a possibility and a chance that it's on the other side of the universe. The same electron of the same atom, and they're interacting with each other somehow across the universe
Right now.
Cool.
So is that what it is that actually keeps us connected, that there are these electrons that just go pew, like one. It's only one of all the trillions of atoms that make up our body, right? Or when we have a loved one and then you break up, are some of those atoms shared forever, right? Because you were in each other's shit. Are some of those forever, and there's actually a physical connection, and not even that you broke up with, just that you're not close to.
Right.
Friendship,
that too.
Yeah, we're around.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Is that,
you share great experiences.
Is there a physical connection? And then there's the spooky action at a distance, the Einstein principle, where two electrons that come in contact with each other, no matter how close, when one changes its spin, the other automatically changes spin, no matter where it is in the universe. So there are connections. And again, that whole atomic probability chart thing. It could be that we exist at any part of the universe, but what if that goes between universes even?
Probably.
Right?
Yeah.
Like,
That's such a cool
my
insight
whole
into that
thing is
movie.
like this
I
foam.
didn't realize.
What's that?
I just didn't realize how much that was in that movie until now.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. That's what it
Right.
reminded me of. That is these probabilities, right? Probability is the way you actually interact with these other universes, universi, which is weird because universe is a singular word. So multi-universe is a oxymoron, I guess. Right? Uni, one.
Right.
Yeah.
But then that would create the perfect duality, no?
Well, in essence, yeah. Right? And again, is it that, like, my whole thing is it a foam? Is the universe, right? Where each bubble is another universe. Like, is that what the universe is? And what we experience as our universe is just a small bubble within that foam. And sometimes the bubbles like coalesce, and sometimes they split. Sometimes they, and sometimes they just go
Gone. Yeah.
right? But if that happens, maybe we don't experience it as the universe popping. We just are like, maybe the next day or instantly.
You wake up.
And that's Mandela effect
it's like when you
shit.
fall asleep
May
in the car,
14th,
and you're just like,
2022.
Maybe? Or even just like driving and just like
Right.
all of a sudden you're driving a Ferrari
you're
and
done.
you're like, like whatever. But you don't think of like it
Right, it just-
doesn't, unless you're like enlightened or whatever, it probably doesn't click. You're just like, oh, this is where I am.
Speaks to practice, I
This
suppose.
is what I do. And again, that's the thing. That's the theme of today's podcast. But it's what you do is what you do, right? There's nothing, you can't want anything. Like, I mean, obviously there's certain boundaries to do. You can't just literally do whatever you want, but you have to think, you have to be in that mindset. You have to switch and be like, I want to be whatever, and then start making steps to become that. But you'll never be like, oh, one day when the timing is right, I'll do
today's the
my
day.
dream, or whenever. It's like the only way to do it is to be like again, that was my whole thing. Like, maybe some people didn't necessarily think it was the best idea, but that's what I did with the music. Was like, I'm not like, I've always wanted to be a musician. I feel inside I've always been a musician. It's just had to take a back seat for all this other shit that I've done in life. Now I actually have an opportunity to do it. I'm going to move that to the front now.
Yeah, it's woken back up.
And it well, not even lately. I meant even just like from university and like when I came back and started the first band.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It was like, I'm going to bring that and say, this is now what I'm doing. And anything else is I'm a musician that's doing this for my day job. I'm a musician that's being a personal trainer, a musician that works at a brewery, whatever. And that put me in a whole other mindset. And we did so much. And there were so many things and so much opportunity with that other situation that we could have done. And there was many limiting factors in that, whatever. But I kind of still kept that going. And I will say over COVID, with things not happening with the band, I had to think about that shift and be like, all right, do I stop the band stuff? Like, is that just something that is going to be a backseat kind of thing? Right. But I never really threw it. I kept doing open mics. I kept doing, stuff where I was at least playing music and doing stuff and playing with John Harley and stuff. And then this whole new band thing came up. So again, it doesn't happen unless you're actually doing the things. And that's not only to keep your skills up and actually be proficient at whatever you're doing, but also you're in the moment where someone's gonna be like, hey, do you want to be in this band? because you actually have the
Yeah.
fucking chops. Or, hey, do you want to be a part of this gallery? Because you
Definitely.
actually have the chops. Or, hey, can you help us out with this video?
All the steps that's like necessary that like people can think they need to get to a certain point, you'd be surprised how many can be filled like just in the mix of it, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Like you meet the right person, the right song, like form of art comes out or whatever that like leads you to a certain connection, or it's just like your personal identity. Again, like you maintaining music in your life allows you to be just a musician first, which is like incredible. And then that work later pays off. It's like, again,
And not everyone...
keeping your attention on things for a certain amount of time will later come with a certain amount of reward.
Totally.
Like,
Totally.
proven.
And it's tough, right? Because there's so many obstacles that happen in their situations and timing and things like that. And it's like, you can't necessarily let those things limit you in that way. Right?
Yeah, it can get heavy, but hey, every day is like day one, an opportunity if you do it with
Little
your best
things.
intention. Yeah,
like
exactly.
we said, little things. As long as like I always say
Honest
with guitar,
check-ins
that's
as
why
well.
I keep my guitar out and in the open, not in the case, because if I can touch it, even if it's for 2 minutes every day, I touched it every day, right? You know, that's the whole thing. Is it whatever you're doing, if you can do it, again, even if it's a minute, even if it's 30 seconds, you've thought about it and you've spent that time and you've entered that realm and you've opened that channel for a second. And it takes practice. It doesn't just happen. Like that creativity wise, like writing songs and stuff. Again, you might have to write a bunch of really shitty shit. Like not might, you will have to write a lot of crap. And you might have to do a lot of stuff that doesn't look good or not know what it is. But someone's going to appreciate that and understand that you're beginning and understand that you're starting. And as long as you don't stay at that level, you can't help it. Everyone has to start somewhere, right?
Yeah.
And you have to just keep working at whatever you're doing, keep building it. Again, even if it is step by step, day by day. And maybe there might be a setback here or there. But then there's going to be big windfalls and there's going to be times where, where things really work out. But again, you've got to be in it to win it, essentially, right? It's like the lotto.
As they say.
Right.
Surely.
Right. But yeah, again, I think the whole idea of also getting back to the movie a little bit, that her particular iteration of her character of who she was as a being, like that worked in the shop or whatever. What's her name? Like, what's the character's name? Fuck, they said it a million times in the movie.
It's not Fiona.
It's like Helen or something.
Evelyn.
Like all her particular iteration of Evelyn was like not very special, but like, but you could tell she did a bunch of shit.
Right.
Remember, she's like, oh, she's a singer, she's a teacher, she's this and that. So like, again, is that like what happens when you open the channel to different things and you get to just try and be that person for a bit,
Yeah, definitely.
right? You get
I'd
to
say
try and
so.
wear that.
Channel in, gather whatever experience, knowledge, wisdom from it.
And I think it highlighted the
Maintain.
whole IRS shit, highlighted that like you can't just do that shit for free, sadly, right? Which is a thing. And that's why a lot of artists and stuff struggle and suffer for a long time, because they have to, because their craft takes a long time to perfect, and up until it's perfect, no one really wants it.
Right. Yeah.
Right? It's valuable in certain ways, more valuable to the artist individually maybe than to other people at the beginning. But again, still, like, when you become huge, people look back, right? Like, people look at Picasso's fucking first shit when he was 5 and they're like, oh my God, it was probably good, but like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like, certain people, if you're amazing, they'll look back at your stuff and be like, wow, like, I get it, even though it might have not been your best work. And a lot of artists say the same thing. Like, there's mad musicians who are like, I hate that song, I hate playing that song, but everyone fucking loves it because it was from a time in my career where I didn't know shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's one of the biggest things, is like, why did I do that? Like,
Right.
even again,
And everyone loves it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Like,
and they want it. Like, apparently Led Zeppelin's like Led Zeppelin's most famous song, "Stairway to Heaven," right?
Yes.
Everyone knows that. Apparently, Jimmy Page like didn't like playing it because it was just like so played out
That song's
to him.
crazy.
I know, right? So, and you got to imagine there might be someone in that crowd who's never fucking been to a live show ever.
Yeah.
So they want to hear that song.
It's their first concert.
Yeah.
That's their favorite song.
So it's this weird. It's like they're like golden handcuffs,
Right.
where like it's the shit, but like you have to do it, and you're like,
Golden
fuck,
handcuffs. That's funny.
right? Like,
Yeah.
I got to do this again, but everyone loves it, and that's why you did it in the first place,
Yeah.
because you wanted people to enjoy it. And again, obviously, everyone gets into art and different endeavors for different reasons, but it's like, you know, if you're in it to make people happy and for people to enjoy what you do and to find meaning in it or whatever, you've succeeded. But then you're sitting there going, fuck, this sucks. Which is the weird. Anyway, it's the weirdest thing.
Sometimes.
I almost hope I get to that point, because that's like very successful. If you can be like, I'm tired of the shit that I did like 10 years ago in my career. But that's the thing. It's just
an honesty point with yourself as well, that you can just
and
improve.
not other than musicians. There's not too many artists that have to go back to their old shit all the time. Right? Like a director doesn't have to keep watching his old movie if he doesn't have to, right? You know, once your painting's done, it's done. It's there. It's not. You're not going to go back and have to do anything to
redo it.
right?
Yeah.
So it's an
Just turn
interesting.
it around.
It's an interesting art form where what you do, all the creation, everything happens so much behind closed doors, and then you finally present it to everyone. And it's already been, you've done it so many times. Like even like studio stuff. Like you get fucking tired of playing the same song over and over and over and over, even just in the studio. Let alone over, like, couldn't imagine like being like the fucking Rolling Stones and having like a 50-year career or whatever. It's almost like 60 years.
275-day tours. Like
That too.
once
It's
again.
like the same shit all the time.
Clinical insane.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like Groundhog Day and shit. And like, again, it's this weird paradox for artists or musicians, even to be even more specific, where like to get your shit out there, you have to like grind so much and do the same thing over and over again. And then people love you for what you do over and over again, but you're like, I want to do something different. And a bunch of people might be like, fuck you. Like Rush the band. I don't know if you guys know much about them. Tom Sawyer, Canadian band. The drummer was actually born in Hamilton. But
Wild.
Yeah, but they had like certain parts of their career where they really changed their music, like their style, like their whole thing. They had like crazy synthesizers at one point during the 80s. Yeah. Very different from when they first started. And they said, like in documentaries and shit, they lost a lot of fans. And a lot of people were like, we don't like this Rush anymore. We want the old stuff. Yeah. But then there was enough people that stayed with them that they're like, fuck it. You guys stayed with us. We like you guys more. Yeah. And then maybe someday, like even my pops always just said he wasn't really big into Rush when they were new, when they were like current. Yeah. But at this point you look back at it and you're like, oh, I can appreciate it now. Right. Again, just because what they were doing was different and they were exploring their artistic capabilities. Like, you don't want to do the same thing over and over. I get it. Yeah. Maybe play a hit during your concert or whatever, or play a couple of hits during one of the sets. Sure. But like, it's tough though, because even myself, I can even say this from personal experience. Like I like when I've seen Pearl Jam, I've seen them twice for like an album that they just released. So they have to play like a bunch of songs from, not they have to, but they choose to play a bunch of like new songs, and it's great. But then I've also seen them when they're not promoting an album and they just get to play whatever they want, and that was amazing.
Noticeably different.
Well, they just get to play whatever, and they basically just play mad hits. Yeah, like they don't really pick any songs that are like they consider bad anyway. Sure. Right? Like they go back and they literally like Eddie will like figure out the set list like day of. I'd be like, we haven't played this in like 8 years. That's like, let's try it. Yeah. That's cool. And sometimes they fuck up. Right. Or they forget the words or some shit. But it's like true. It's like that's cool. Yeah. It's real. And it's like, we get it. Like they've been around since 1991. Like, they have a lot of songs to like forget. They've forgot more things than we've ever thought of. Right? Wow. That's Kanye said that once. But yeah, but that's the thing. It's true. And
Yeah.
that's the weird career anyway of a musician, I think, which I hope, again, I'd be lucky to like hate a song because I played it too much. And right now, which is really cool with Reckless Harbor, I fucking like the songs. Like, they get stuck in my head, which I think means a lot. So I'm really interested.
That's
It's a
cool.
That's amazing.
It's a cool vibe, like more folky. It's not as
Yeah.
rocky.
Yeah.
No drummer. So almost like early Mumford and Sons vibe,
Right.
just without like
Nice.
the stomp drum.
Very cool.
Yeah, banjo,
Yeah.
violin, right? And then myself, I'm still playing electric. Sorry, boys, if you're watching. I don't know if you guys watch this, but they want me to play upright bass so bad,
Yeah.
like the big, like,
Yeah.
because it looks fucking folky
Just
and
fits
shit,
the
but
scene. Yeah.
it's so big and it's so annoying and it's hard to play because there's no frets. So you have to like be in they're called positions. You don't call them fret 1, 2, 3, you call them position 1, 2, 3.
Right.
Because it's literally like a muscle thing. You have to like remember where
That's
the different
interesting.
notes
I didn't know
are
that.
on the string. Yeah. So that's fretless instruments. So
insane.
violin, cello, all those like with no frets on them. There's fretless bass, like electric bass too, but obviously the double bass has no frets. There's a certain position where the note is in tune. So up or down, you could be out of tune. So you have to like just learn and you play like I learned to play it in high school. I haven't played since, but you literally attach it to a tuner like that you tune the guitar with.
Yeah.
And you play and you make sure you're playing the notes in tune because it shows you like green, red, like there's like a little dial. So you can be like, all right, that's in tune. That's one.
That's neat.
Yeah. So your ear gets really good.
Yeah.
And anyway, so it's a little bit tougher, but I like the electric bass sound in the band because we have kind of this interesting like we have like weird like rock element like influences into the folk aspect of things. So
Yep.
the electric
mix.
bass sounds
Yeah.
good. Maybe I'm just telling myself that. Yo, is that look, it's the Charles Bridge and look at the poster above it. It's the same
That's
same
sick.
bridge. Whoa.
Nuts.
Everyone, so Google Images just showed us the Charles Bridge in Prague and I have a poster of it in the studio and it's almost the identical shot just at night. Whoa.
That's crazy.
Talk about existence.
nuts.
Synchronicity, boys,
Yeah.
right? All possibilities.
Super wild.
But is there correlation?
Yeah, man. Yo, what does this mean?
Dope.
Did we just enter a new realm? But that's the other thing with the Mandela effect, to get right back to it. Like, that's
you
what
tell
it
yourself.
could be, is that if something changed and our universe, and that's the whole idea of the Mandela effect, that something happened, and they do think that's about CERN. So I have talked about this before, right? The super collider
Yeah.
theory.
Yeah.
That in Switzerland they have the Large Hadron Collider, and the first time they turned it on and smashed two atoms together to see what they were made of, it like ripped up it ripped space time or like potentially destroyed our universe, and we just popped in, and then Trump's president, and then there's like Nelson Mandela's still alive, like crazy stuff, right? Like the Berenstain Bears, all that stuff. I think we've talked about this.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, man.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's where they think potentially that comes from, is that if we're somehow able to switch universes in a way, or something happened that made us switch universes, that this universe is so close to what our other ones, because there's infinite possibilities of what the universe could be.
Yeah.
Right. Like they didn't really go into it too much into the movie. They did like the weird floppy hot dog hands, but there would be like other universes where you're like an amoeba, or like you're like a crazy
The
creature.
Rock.
Right.
Yeah.
Rock, yeah, true.
Or like just the tree.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Or like something like wild.
Existing.
Just, yeah.
Or like you are air. Yeah.
Yeah.
You are nitrogen.
I mean, probably do.
Like, could you
Fuck.
imagine if
Like a
any
pebble.
like if all atoms and stuff had sentience? Like oxygen is a being
There's a being itself. And
that's
you
like permeated throughout the universe.
and you become it eventually, and then realize.
Multiple
And then there's
experiences.
nitrogen and fucking they're all hanging out and they're like,
They're at
yo,
a
what up?
bar. Yo.
Yo, do you think there's like a conscious ladder that we follow? Like, do you think we start as like a rock, then build into like a bug, and we're like a frog?
Yeah,
you know,
potentially.
like go
Reincarnation.
Up the, like go up the chain.
Potentially. Hopefully we continue
I mean,
up. Hopefully
yeah.
we don't take any steps back.
I mean, hopefully you just cycle through. If anything,
Yeah.
I don't even care if I necessarily go up.
Right. Well, yeah.
or just something,
love,
right?
just
something.
the idea of that was like always the biggest fear of death when I was younger. It was like, oh wait, what? It stops? All this stop? What's after?
Yeah.
And it's just like, well, this.
Right.
Like what was before you were aware of it all? Right?
You don't know.
That.
Yeah.
And
Exactly. But that's how hard people are attached to this reality. That it's hard for them to even comprehend. They think that this way of being just continues on, but because they only know this way of being. But again, with psychedelics and stuff, we've experienced. Oh wow, what is that? Where is that? Is that in Dubai?
Possibly.
I'm not.
I don't recognize it.
Trippy. Sorry, everyone. This friggin' TV is just getting us
Sending
today.
us places.
Tremendous. Google Images. Shout out.
Dubai, Singapore.
Yeah,
One
maybe
of the
something.
two.
It's a big ass towers involved. Is that the Burj Khalifa? Anyway, Christian's gonna look it up for us. Yeah, where were we? Shit.
Everywhere.
Oh yeah, again that like consciousness ladder idea too, right? Like, is consciousness different, or is consciousness, right? Like, are there levels to it, or and then is there like a route to enlightenment on said ladder potentially? If there is like levels of consciousness, do we rise above it? Do we become consciousness? Is that the final form? If you can't imagine what it was like before, who knows what it's going to be like after? But there's a million different ideas of what the afterlife is. But because we've touched on psychedelics, we've at least experienced another form of existence. It's not necessarily a telling form of existence, but it's another form of existence that at least we've experienced it, and we know that this one right now isn't the only one. But how many people out there that have never done psychedelics only know this existence? Like, that's it. They have no idea that all you have to do is eat one mushroom or a little piece of paper with soaked in acid, and the whole shit is on its head. And just like that. So why are we putting all this fucking weight on this thin ice, man, that exists? This veil that exists that we potentially have manufactured, or that's just what it is as three-dimensional beings, or four, I guess, that there just has to be this veil for us to exist.
Yeah.
Right? It's like that.
Organize.
If athletics exists within this reality, and this reality, does this reality exist within another reality?
Right.
And we're all just like playing by these rules right now. And people who are enlightened, or the end of the road, or whatever you want to call it, is like, you can choose not to play by these rules. And then all of a sudden you're Neo and you're flying and shit. Right? Because you're like, fuck it. Like, because that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing that happened in the Matrix, right? Was like, he was like, I don't need to follow any of these rules. I can live outside the boundaries of the Matrix. And is that what we want to actually be, right? Because that's that allegory of the cave.
Yeah.
Like, are we trapped in here? Truman Show, everything. Are we trapped, in essence, in this reality that exists somehow within something else, which we can't comprehend in this reality? Right? Because again, with like, the stupid analogy of sports within that, you can kind of be like, oh yeah, like the real world exists outside this, but you forget, man. Like, you don't need to. You don't need anyone else, man. Yeah. You don't need the rest of the world. Like the 2 weeks of training camp, bro, every August was like the world stopped. My job was done. Like every year I'd lose out on a month of summer job, which was good money, depending on your job, but it was money you needed as a student.
Definitely.
Every year, miss out on a whole month, and then just enter football. That's it. That's all you're thinking about. Plays, getting your shit fucked up, like just getting smoked every day, twice a day. Watching film, more watching film, and just like, that's it. You don't care about anything else. It doesn't matter, because it doesn't matter. Legitimately doesn't matter who's the prime minister, what the weather is. Literally, it doesn't fucking matter, because all that matters is how fucking good are you at football right now? Like, how good at whatever you're doing is, how good are you at it? And like, can you get better? And it's
interesting.
It's
how
like getting better. It's a good realm.
Choose
It's a
our
good
time.
realm to be in. You want it's a realm of excellence and being like, I want to achieve some kind of goal and some pinnacle, but that's it. That's all you can think about. And that's how really successful anybody who's successful at anything that they can do is they can create this like micro world, and they can shut off everything and only exist in that. It's a privilege to do that because it probably like, you know, if you have to have a job, it's hard to like, you know, continue working. But in those moments when you can do it, if you're able to shut off the whole world and just be in what you're doing, you're going to be successful. But the more we get distracted and the more we let other things and feelings and emotions and events come in, it prevents us, right? Because they truly only exist in this reality. But art and love and music and whatever exists across all realities potentially, and outside, and might even be the fabric of what reality is, right? We've experienced that feeling of emotion being an actual thing, that love is maybe what the universe is made of, and everything we do relates to love. And if everything we do is in love and trying to create that and trying to grow that and trying to give love and receive love in that way, we're only building the universe. But anytime we work against that, we're destroying it and working against it. And that's the perpetual good versus evil, light versus dark. It needs to exist both ways. But if anything, if we can lean towards the light and lean towards the love, I think that's what perpetuates life, and that's what keeps things moving. Because I think hate and negativity and darkness wants to stay still, and light wants to move, and light wants to keep going, and love wants to move forward and be positive and do all that stuff. And it's good. So therefore, you need it to kind of, if it's on a scale, you need to be 51% light for things to keep moving forward, and hopefully more. But then the light doesn't exist without the dark. So you can't completely eliminate one without the other. And I think that happens in life a lot, where we try to, especially nowadays, we try to eliminate suffering.
Yeah.
We try to eliminate pain and discomfort. But some of that stuff is, again, it creates the backdrop for the good.
Definitely. Yeah.
Right?
Certainly.
Yeah. Rolls back around to, like, again, everybody's just looking for the highlight reel and kind of not necessarily catching all the behind the scenes work that goes into it, the therapy. It's fucking...
Well, to swing it back around, the whole 10 years thing, no one sees the 10 years up until you're famous.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, no one knows the toil.
judge you
No
from
one
them.
knows the shit that goes. They just know, oh, this guy popped out of nowhere. This guy came out of nowhere. This chick came out of nowhere. Whatever. It's like, no, they've been toiling for years.
As I get further in mine, like in art, I just realize, like, that's really not up for everybody to know either. Like, it's kind of just yours.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Your reference, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Again, you know, it's tough these days with content because we put so much stuff out into the universe.
Yeah.
It's hard to not
The
show
lines
like
blur,
the
for
early
sure.
shit. But at least the hard work and stuff, yeah, for sure. I mean, like, again, if you're a musician, if you're whatever, or even if there's so many paintings that you probably haven't taken pictures of, right, that exist. And there's works that you've spent hours on that just exist in a file and no one's seen them. That's good. The more you have of that, the better.
Yeah.
Right? Because that exists. That piles
Getting
up.
familiar.
Yeah. And that's the hard work. Like when your teacher was like, show your work. Like, there it is.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But like...
I had a lot of empty pages.
Yeah, it was brutal. But to have stuff that only you know about and only you know where you've came from, like that's special to the individual. But in a way we're not individuals too. We're part of something bigger. Right? So it's interesting not to get too cosmic on it, but that's really nice to have that stuff, to just keep it to yourself, and then all of a sudden when you make it. And then
Oh yeah.
if people want to look back and try and find stuff, whatever, but it's true. It's for you.
Yeah.
And share it too.
Yeah. Share love.
Like, it is for you, but then when the opportunity to discuss it arises, chat.
Well, because everyone does want to know. Like,
Everyone's doing it. That's
Yeah.
the thing that I've realized more than ever. It's like, oh, you're just, again, at a certain point of the forever journey that it is to decide to dedicate yourself to something.
And it helps people who are working on things to know, like, hey, there's other people have been in the same position that I've been in.
Yeah.
And they know exactly what I'm going through because they've done it too. Right. And another thing too, I remember doing it just by accident, but I heard it in a documentary too. And one of the best things anyone should ever do, and at any point, doesn't matter if you're early, if you're young, or if you've been listening to music for years, any artist, whatever it is, doesn't have to just be music. Find out what inspired them. Go look and discover what their influences were, what they liked.
Yeah.
And see what that is. And then it opens things up huge. And the only reason I accidentally came across that is because there's this magazine from the UK called Uncut. Have you ever heard of it? It's like a music magazine. There's also another magazine called Mojo. They're just like music magazines, but they used to give you a CD with it back in the day. This is obviously back in the day. But there used to be a sticker attached to the cover. And you go to chapters and you get your shit.
Sick.
But there was this one, they used to do these series where they would like interview a famous artist. So they interviewed Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin, and they do the interview, and he like made a playlist. Essentially, it was like an OG playlist. He curated the CD, and like was like, this is all the stuff I like, and this is the stuff there was like some current songs, and then there was like OG shit that he would have listened to like back in the day. And that was like, it was like, I was probably like 12 or 13. I was like, holy shit. Like,
he didn't create
the
it
artists
all.
I know, like, actually like and listen to music too. Like, they're not just like, they don't exist to just create their own music, right? Like, I heard Neil Young apparently doesn't really listen to music, but I call bullshit on that. I think he just meant like contemporary music of the genre that he was in at the time, just so he didn't like steal from anyone by accident. But he obviously listens to music. He's a big musician. He's like one of the biggest proponents of like good technology right now. But again, just that idea of like a musician is actually listening to other musicians, right? Like, obviously. So that's one thing for sure. Like, if anyone is inspired by anyone, go and try and find out who inspired them.
That was a big thing when I was looking into Basquiat and realizing like I watched this panel, and I forget how the people, whether they just studied him, maybe knew him, whatever, there was a mix. And they were explaining how there was like a romanticism around the idea of him as this just like broke street dwelling like artist who just like created things and graffiti and then it was like, oh no, like he daily went to like galleries and he read, and like there was this big story about like why he did a lot of like anatomy in his paintings is because he was stuck in the hospital because he got hit by a car, I think it is. And while he was there, his mom bought him one of the Grey's Anatomy textbooks.
True.
So in the like hospital bed, that's just what he was going through, and that's why he has so much suggestion towards the human body. And I was like, that's so interesting to learn. Again, as you're saying, is like the references, the people that you look at, and often like we can glamorize sometimes, whether it's again athletes, whatever. It's like there's so much background, learning, knowledge, reference that they're taking from. So like, again, speaks to, great artist steal, right?
Yeah. Well, you can be like, oh my God, how did they even figure this out? Like, this is so original. This is so amazing. Right. But they had to, like, there are some like amazing visionary artists that
you hope
are groundbreaking, that once in a lifetime show, and are like, wow, like, what is this guy doing? But most of them have, again, it's that great, I think Einstein says it, we stand on the shoulder of giants. Right, there's so many people before us that have done all this work to get us to where we are today. Yeah, that's and cool. we're just standing on all their hard work, right? Literally, like anything you can think of, right? All these people, our ancestors or anyone's ancestors went through some deep shit just for us to be here to this day, right? And then to think about this, right? Like, we're lucky in a sense. But like any big idea, or like, science in general, but any big idea, is like someone figured it out at some point. And sometimes there's eureka moments where all of a sudden one person is a genius and figures out, and takes 10 steps ahead. But most of the time it's this slow little tweaks, trial and error, maybe someone does something one way. And then once you do figure it out, it's that whole thing with like, monkeys washing potatoes. I've probably talked about this on the podcast before, but there's this like isolated island with like these two monkey populations. We talked about this, right? And this one monkey, these one monkeys, like this one tribe or whatever of monkeys started like washing their potatoes and stuff before they ate them.
Yeah.
And completely uncontacted, the other group of monkeys started doing it like almost immediately.
On the other side.
On the other side. On the other side of the island,
right.
no contact.
Yeah.
No nothing. And is that a coincidence? Probably not. Or is that somehow how ideas work? That once there is an idea, once someone does it, then that idea exists, and then someone else is like, oh, okay, I get it. Like maybe you've arrived to it independently, but there's no coincidence. There can't be a coincidence that it happened so close at almost the same time.
That just reminded me of a meme I saw today, and it was like, so you're telling me some ape ate a mushroom that grew out of shit, and now I have to go to my 9 to 5 to hold up my like fucking identity, whatever
Seriously.
the rest was. But
Oh my god.
yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
That's how
Well,
it works.
again, even you can even think of
little mushroom grew and then we're here.
existence in itself, and how and have we ever taken steps back? Are we in a period where we've taken steps back in things moving, right? Like, was there, that whole Younger Dryas thing with Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock?
I don't know what that is.
So they talk about the Younger Dryas was a small ice age that we had about 12,000 years ago,
Okay.
and it abruptly ended about 10,000 years ago. Like abruptly meaning like in 100 years, but
Yeah.
like an ice age meaning it was probably like 10 degrees cooler across the globe. So there was mad glaciers. Like basically all of Canada was under like two miles of ice.
Wow.
Like in an ice age, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
basically all life existed like around the equator and like near the coastlines. But then like around 10,900 years ago or something like that, you can tell in the geologic records, we like snapped out of the Younger Dryas. We snapped out of this ice age. And there's a lot of reasons why, but there's pretty much the consensus is that we got hit with comets.
Yeah.
And it flash melted the glaciers. So it hit around here in Canada. It hit one of the glaciers, and flash melted all this shit. The sea levels rose. Like crazy floods would have happened. It killed like all megafauna in North America. So we used to have like big giant bears. We used to have lions and crazy giant animals like big sloths and shit. So avocados, they exist. And their seeds are so fucking big is because giant sloths used to eat them like berries, and they would shit out the seeds. And that's why they're so fucking big, is because these are giant sloths that would eat these things.
That's
Right.
fucking funny.
Yeah. So
I know
like,
that.
but those things
I've never heard
existed
of
in
that.
North
That's
America.
crazy.
Yeah. And there's like tunnels that they dug that still exist. And they're like, how these, and fucking sloths, like huge, man. I'm talking like
Yeah.
10-foot tunnels,
What?
like tall, like, you know what I'm saying? Big.
Crazy.
And these all existed until this crazy fucking flood
There's
happened.
so much shit
And
before us.
every ancient culture, the only thing that is consistent through every ancient culture and religion and story is there's a flood myth. There's always something that happened. There was a flood, Noah's Ark, whatever. Something happened. And the sinking of Atlantis, Plato actually wrote in one of his writings. He wrote the date of when Atlantis sunk, and it correlates with when this Younger Dryas thing ended.
Oh.
So there could have been a place like like any city, in
Yeah.
fact, that existed on the coastline would have been fucked.
Damn.
Like this would have
Yeah.
like, it's not like ooh floods It's like floods that are full of like, it's water that's like a mile high,
Yeah.
at least,
Filled with
fucking
world.
stone and
Yeah.
trees
Nothing
and
is
fucking
making it.
other animals. Like
Yeah.
it's wiping out whatever exists. And like, even if that happened even if that happened to us today, nothing's fucking surviving. That's like of sweet technology.
No.
Like hard drives are fucked.
Yeah.
Anything that's like high technology is fucked. The only thing that would exist
Dams
are
would
like
just,
stone
like,
shit. Everything would be fucked.
Yeah.
They wouldn't even be like, you know what I'm saying? Like
No.
When I'm talking like water, like
Done.
like higher than buildings, like way higher, like coming in peace.
Yeah.
And like there's like evidence on like floodplains and stuff. Like it looks like the sand of a beach, like, you know, under the water, it gets like that.
Yeah.
It looks like this when you take a big bird's eye view. It looks like this, like in Montana and shit, but on like huge, like each one's like 3 miles, like big.
Wow.
How else could that ever fucking exist without that much fucking water coming through?
Wow.
But no one really is down with the whole flood thing, like that existed. They know that the Younger Dryas abruptly ended, and they're pretty convinced that it was an impact of something, whether it was an asteroid or whether it was a coronal mass ejection, which is like this crazy like magnetic pulse that can come from the sun. And if it hits our magnetic field, it like turns the atmosphere into pure lightning.
Lightning storms.
Like lightning comes down like rain.
Yeah.
And that could have flash melted the polar ice caps as well. So
That's a crazy thought.
so anyway, that's that whole idea that if we did exist as a civilization before, there's no real proof. And the whole idea is that people that did survive, the very few, went to the Amazon and went to like tribes in Africa and like brought them this knowledge. And then they wrote them down as like, these are fucking pure gods coming at us with this shit. They're coming at us with crazy knowledge. Because if we went to an uncontacted tribe today and showed them an iPhone, they'd fucking trip balls.
Yeah.
You can't even get you can't even get close.
You can't get close to them.
Shooting arrows.
The ones that are truly uncontacted, yeah, they'll fucking pump you full of arrows for sure.
Yeah.
But if you could, and you could, even like a lighter would probably make them trip balls.
Oh, for sure.
Oh yeah.
Right? It's that whole idea, right?
Fucking iPhone.
Yeah. Right?
One of those like laser.
Yeah.
Like torch
Anything.
lighters.
A torch lighter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, any lighter, but yeah, it's so funny.
Literally
Just
any, like, practically anything.
we're like, it's
you
got to
can
be
show.
sick.
Yeah.
It's like, no, Brand. They've never seen a lighter.
Anything,
That's
right?
So
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right? So
True.
like so that's what they that's why they think like the Aztecs were like aliens came, or like these gods came and they were carrying these handbags. There's like this one weird like bag looking thing, and it looks like a cartoon version of a purse, but it's like almost like any like megalithic site has these like weird little images of these small purses that these beings, larger beings, are carrying.
Huh.
And it's old school, really ancient like pictography or whatever, where
Yeah,
they'll
yeah.
usually show someone bigger as like, that means they're more important. It didn't necessarily meant that they were literally physically larger in real life. But a lot of people are like, oh, they're aliens, they're bigger, they have weird like lizard heads or like weird like god like shit. But again, it was this was a document to them, so it had to contain a lot of information. So they did weird shit that wasn't exactly a representation of reality.
Right.
But again, that could have been the
we're doing
idea
it now.
that these people came down that survived and were like, this is how we're going to rebuild civilization. And then they did. And they taught them how to do shit. And they taught them how to do, and they tried their best to recreate what they had, even without all the shit like that got wiped away in the flood. So that's what, who knows? So again, we could have, like, there's no proof that where we are today is the smartest we've ever been as a civilization, or the most talented, or the most artistic, or the most whatever. We just know what we know.
Yeah, it's just what it is.
But at any point, like, there's even before this, there was like this genetic bottleneck where we got down to like a couple thousand humans on Earth. Right? So like, yeah, there was this that they know, and they can go back, anthropologists or whoever can go back and be like, at one point we almost got wiped off. Like, we almost were extinct as a species. So we're much more related than anyone thinks, because we basically had like 1,000 people. The gene pool is very small at one point. So again, you know,
up, bro?
who knows if this is the final form, or if we've been there, and if we have been there before, can we, you know, it's the opposite of the multiverse. Like I said, can we access our ancient history, right? Like, can we access what our ancestors have done, and like what they've been through in the wars and shit? Because like, I swear sometimes I feel like I'm somehow connected to like ancient, even not even that far back, just a couple hundred years, like some crazy Polish guy was swinging a sword.
Oh yeah.
You know, you feel that weird shit, right?
For
like some
sure.
ancient.
I'm so
some
glad you brought that
ancient
up. For
fucking,
sure.
you know, English dude like with
Every
a fucking
war-
mace, or like some French guy
Every
like bow
main
and arrow
event.
someone.
Every war film I've ever seen, I've cried in, and I'm like, I don't know any family history of war. Like I just, of course, like having English background, I can only assume, but it's like almost every single war film I've ever seen, I will tear up at a certain point because it's just overwhelmingly like, yeah, I don't know. It's not interesting. It's like, I don't know. I don't even know what the feeling is.
It's
You
a
know what I mean?
connection, and
Yeah,
it
exactly.
might even
Yeah,
be
of
this.
sorts.
You might even be able to like categorize it
A
as
deep
nostalgia
empathy,
in a
yeah.
weird way, even though you've never actually
Possibly.
experienced it, right? In
Possibly.
a weird way,
Yeah.
right? Because that's, you know, the Greek form of nostalgia is a pain from an old wound, right? So like, is that somehow cross generational, cross dimensional, whatever it is?
Probably, yeah.
And is that just the filmmakers or whatever trying to elicit something too?
Doing really well. Yeah. Absolutely.
But
bit
again,
of
I
both.
think there's something, you know,
Yeah.
especially, you know, and there is history, especially any like European descendant, like there's much more like history close to now where shit went down. But you take anybody and you go back far enough in history, and like their ancestors like went through some major shit.
Yeah.
And like they
Everyone got
obviously
pillaged.
exist to today. So like the people who survived found a way to fucking survive and you know, procreate. So like how much of that is inside you, right? Like how much of that, and then again, how much can you access, and blah blah blah, right? So
Heavy.
it again is that's that multiverse theory where we experience time the way we experience it, but if time exists all at once, everywhere, everything all at once, if time exists in that way, we are that ancient person now, and we're
Right.
also that future person right
Right.
now, right?
Yeah.
Mind blowing.
I fucking enjoy it because I think it's just how, whether you actually ever get the experience of that, the idea of it is so empowering.
Totally.
It's like what's it called? I don't know how the line was said or who said it, but it was like the idea of like going into anything you do with the power of all your ancestors behind you.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're about to go up to bat, like swing with all of your ancestors' strength.
Yeah.
Like that idea was in just a lot of the things that used to be narrated to us and things like that, whereas now it is, I don't know, is it a focus much anymore? Is that still being taught? I don't know. I think it's something to be kept in mind, but yeah, again, like whether we're ever actually going to be able to be on psychedelics and things like that, feel those realities or verses or what they feel like,
Yeah.
who knows? But
Yeah, and is that psychedelic just that portal that opens to that
For
or
a bit of
is
time.
it just opens you to being more malleable to those different wavelengths?
Just like a little
yeah.
glimpse.
Like does it?
well, it's like
does
why
it-
do we
yeah.
why do we come out of
Peak
mushrooms so
moniker.
much and being like reminder,
Yeah.
reminder?
Right.
It's like, okay, well that was very significant for me of like, oh, I don't feel like I learned new information.
Yeah,
It was just like, you forgot this.
totally. And I think
Thoroughly.
that speaks to like the whole collective unconscious thing too, right? Is that all this information is available at all times. Our brain does have the capacity to remember everything all like that it's ever seen and ever experienced.
It's so funny to not say the name of the movie all the time.
I
now.
know, right?
Right.
Like-
it just relates.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. That's how deep this movie is too, right? Like that everything is like they never missed a thing.
No.
Like they
Yeah.
it's a very meticulous movie.
It's just like you said, that is everything you can put into one movie.
You can be young or
Yeah.
you can be old.
So
Yeah.
far.
Like you'll take
Totally.
a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, because
for
there's you
So
know
far.
just to get back to it briefly, but like comedy, action, drama, you know, everything, everything.
roller coaster of every emotion.
Acting was so good, man. Like just a tremendous movie. So
It was
if anyone's
amazing,
out there,
yes.
go see
Go
it if
watch
you haven't
it.
seen it.
Please.
Check it out.
That's a great way to.
Yeah, that's a perfect little ending there. I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
again, you know,
Cut it out here,
open
boys.
those portals. Be
open to
be
it.
open to the possibilities, because again, you know, believe that that anything can happen.
Yes.
You know, it's possible. Anything can happen. Anything will happen. Anything has happened, and anything is happening.
Hell yeah.
So you just got to be ready for it. And I think that's it.
You got to be ready for it.
If you feel any tickle, follow it.
That's it. Follow your nose wherever it goes.
Yes.
Where can they find you? Jack Williams.
Yeah, by Jack Williams on Instagram. That's the main one.
Christian Aubin
Check it out on Insta.
Instagram.
Nice.
Link us, collab.
Yes, for sure. Video and paint. You can go anywhere and everywhere.
100%.
Yeah.
The visual, and then check out Reckless Harbor. Everyone who hasn't checked it out yet, we got all your artistic needs right here.
The
visual,
beautiful, man.
The auditory, and the cinematography.
Yes. Amazing.
Beautifully said.
Well, thanks everyone for listening on to us go super deep here. I hope you have seen the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once. If not, go see it right now, and then watch the rest of this podcast or watch what just happened, because if you're here now, you probably watched all the way up to this point. Anyway, thanks for joining. Again, if you like the podcast, please give us a 5-star review. I know it doesn't seem like much, but it does mean a lot to us. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, hit the bell so you know when we drop the next video. And again, share it with your friends if you can. Let everyone know. If you let one friend know, we'll double the podcast overnight. If you want to hit us up on anything, Instagram or Twitter, it's at the Bigmark Podcast or at the Bigmark Pod. And then if you want to donate to us, check out our Patreon, patreon.com/thebigmarkpod. Thanks again for listening. We'll talk to you soon, everyone.
Peace. Bye.
Thanks, bro.
Amazing.